The purpose of Wealth Talk is to educate, inform, and hopefully entertain you on the subject of building your wealth. WealthBuilders recommends you should always take independent financial, tax, or legal advice before making any decisions around your finances.
Welcome to episode 145 of Wealth Talk. My name's Christian Rodwell, the Membership Director of WealthBuilders, and sitting right by my side is our founder, Mr. Kevin Whelan.
Hello, Chris. Good to be with you live and in London, actually.
Yes, yeah, very nice indeed on this wonderful sunny day.
Yeah.
So we've got a great episode today. We have the founder of ActionCOACH, Mr. Brad Sugars, and doing things a little differently because all three of us were on that interview.
Yeah.
So we're going to get into that really soon. But Brad is, recognised across the world as one of the top business coaches.
Yeah.
Obviously, the most successful business coaching franchise in the world.
You can't argue with those credentials, can you? And when you listen to what he has to say, you just like the blue touch paper and walk away because Brad just keeps giving and giving and giving. And you can hear that. You can just hear the brain just whirring away and giving golden nuggets like you can't. So there's probably not going to be much opportunity for a real debrief. I think you can just pick out all those nuggets for yourself. So, and unusually it's quite a long interview as well. So another reason just to keep it a little bit down for people because we know how precious bandwidth is.
That's it. And the reason, obviously, we've got Brad on is because we've got the BizX event happening next week. Mm-hmm. So the 31st of March and the 1st of April, you'll be speaking on stage, Kevin, at that one. And obviously the release of the Wealth Coach book as well, co-authored with Brad.
Yeah. So, I don't know whether or not it's a sellout, but it probably is. It's in Farnborough in Surrey. There'll be 2,000 business owners, plus there'll be those people who can't make it watch the recording. So that'll be an interesting one. So we'll all be there and I'll be live and in action. And that'll be an interesting one. It'll be like live at the Palladium. It's about the same size as the Palladium, I think.
That's right.
So that'll be fun. And we'll hopefully generate, a lot of interest in the book, which, it's called The Wealth Coach, co-authored between myself and Brad. And that book will be available soon. It'll be on Amazon and the usual places, but it won't be launched until at that event where hopefully there'll be enough people buying copies and me and Brad signing away. So
yeah, and we've got a link online already for anyone who just wants to be notified when that is available.
Yeah.
So wealthbuilders.co.uk/wealth coach, all one word. Go there and we'll keep you updated. And if you want to head along to the event, I believe tickets are still available. So head to the ActionCOACH website, actioncoach.co.uk, and grab a ticket and come and meet us and say hello.
Yeah, it's going to be, one thing I like about events like that is look how difficult it's been over the last 2 years. If you're in business, you've been through the mill. And this is an opportunity for businesses to get together, to acknowledge each other, to celebrate each other. And so often business owners are doing their business inside their own enterprise in a sort of a vacuum, and they're isolated, making decisions, dealing with sales, dealing with marketing, dealing with admin, dealing with all the key relationships, and always time poor. So I'm always honored when business owners take time out of their business and try and build their knowledge and build their capability to help them take their business to the next level. And I'll be talking about how to create multiple streams of income, both inside and outside of your company, so that you become financially bulletproof. And never has there been a better time to have that aspiration when we've seen not just what's happened over the last 2 years, but what's happening right now. So definitely, jump onto that, have a listen to Brad, get the book, because all lessons will be in there as well. So, yeah, it's a good one.
It is indeed. Okay, well, let's not hang around any longer. Let's head on to our conversation with author, speaker, and CEO of the multi-million-dollar franchise ActionCOACH, Mr. Brad Sugars. Brad, welcome to Wealth Talk today.
Well, g'day from sunny Las Vegas.
Great to have you here. And I've got Kevin. So we're doing a three-way conversation today. And Brad, really looking forward to speaking with you. And we're going to cover a few things today. We're going to talk about the importance of creating recurring income in your business. We're going to talk about how you've created such a successful global franchise brand. And then, of course, talk about the upcoming BizX event, which is taking place on the 31st of March to the 1st of April. And also the Wealth Coach book, which you've co-authored with Kevin.
It's very good timing to be chatting about all of these things. So, when you sit down and you start thinking about we're getting to travel again, I get to come to the UK, I get to actually speak to a real live audience again. I can't wait.
Yeah, it's going to be good. And I think we've got
forward to that big stuff.
Yeah. We've got a lot of common interests between us, Brad. One in particular, which I really want to start with, is a shared, fondness for Jim Rohn. And I see that you're definitely inspired by Jim Rohn. Tell us a bit more about that.
I met Mr. Rohn when I was 16 years of age. I just won the Rotary Youth Leadership Award, and they took me away for a week-long training on how to be successful. And that got me really passionate about learning and reading. And I went, I think it was maybe a month later, Jim Rohn was coming to town. I thought, I'm going to get to this. And it was about $600, if I remember rightly. And as a 16-year-old, it was like, that was all the money I was making at Kmart, working Thursday nights and Saturday mornings to get to go and see him. But I remember running down to him after the event and getting him to sign my notes. And then when I was 31, I was one of his opening acts in Sydney in front of 5,000 people at the Sydney Convention Centre, him and Tom Hopkins and Alan Pease, and I was like the young kid at the start of the whole show sort of thing. And I showed him my notes, and he said, "Please call me Jim." I said, "Yes, Mr. Rohn. Some people earn that right," sort of thing. And so, in fact, just the other day, I recorded a YouTube video on my 45 best ever Jim Rohn quotes. So I still attribute a lot of success to him and those big lessons of, never wish life were easier, wish you were better, work harder on yourself than you do on your job, and read a book a week for the rest of your life. And every single one of those is still with me today.
Seems like it comes naturally to you now, Brad. It's just such an ingrained thing that when you get inspired that much, it's really great when it not just is an easy quote to give, but it's something you live your life by, because you've often been quoted as being, very focused on always adding value to yourself, working with smarter people than yourself, and reading a book a week yourself. And you've written quite a few as well, I believe.
Having written 17 of the dang things, it's but nowadays, like I joke because Mr. Rohn used to say, no one can do your reading for you. That was before Audible and Headway and all of these apps that read the book to you now. So it's like literally you can go for a run and read a book at the same time.
Yeah, which is fantastic leverage indeed, which is the same as a podcast. You can be multitasking at the same time. So we're all up for leverage in a world where so much is demanded of us, and our bandwidth gets restricted all the time. So, but like you, looking forward to meeting some real people and shaking some hands, and looking forward to meeting you in the flesh as well, as opposed to just doing it on Zoom.
Yeah, well, these Zoom calls have been great, but getting back to real face-to-face, you mentioned the word leverage there a couple of times, and one of the things that I've found that I forget when I learnt the term leverage. I might have been 20 or 21, and learning the ever more with ever less philosophy, and then for me developing that so that I could teach it into do the work once, get paid forever. And that's why you mentioned podcasts. People say, why do you put so much energy into podcasts? Well, because I believe they're there forever now. Everything that you want to teach is there forever. So people can be learning from this. And I imagine, Christian, you'll have some people listening to this podcast 5, 10, 15 years from now, still getting relevance and still getting value from it.
Albeit there's some massive changes since you started. Let's talk about Action Coach way back in 93. I see you wearing the hat proudly there. The world was very different in 1993, right? So what was the kind of reason behind getting that started? You'd mentioned you'd realized consulting wasn't the right thing to do. So it's a big step, isn't it, for a young guy as you were then to create a global franchise. So how did that get started?
When in 93, I was, when you're young and successful, and I was successful in other areas of business, and people say, well, can you speak? Can you talk to us? Can you teach us what happened? And I think that Rotary Club leading me to learning to speak and wanting to be a speaker, and I think debate class in school as well helped a lot. But when people ask you to speak and then they come to you and say, well, can you help us? Can you help us? And after the first 100 times saying to people, no, I'm too busy running my own things and doing a few speeches and stuff to help out, eventually I think you get the, maybe I should actually do something about this. If people keep asking for it, maybe at some time you should actually do something with this. And so that's why I said coaching to people because they said, well, can you help us? And I said, listen, if you call me every week, I'll coach you through something. And I just did it for free in the beginning because I didn't really have any systematic methodologies for doing it. And here we are 29 years later, almost 29. This August will be 29 years. And we're now with just over 1,100 offices in 83 countries and coaching business to over 280,000 business owners every single month. Is quite a phenomenal feat that my team has achieved. And I say my team because I'm just the leader. I get to, take all the glory or take all the blame, but mostly it's been the team effort, and that's the greatest thing. If you recruit and build great people, they build a great company. So,
any big plans for celebration in 2023?
Look, we have a party every year. Our top 200 people from ActionCOACH come to a party. This year we're going to Hawaii. So we've got top 200 in Hawaii celebrating our 29th year. Our 30th year, I can't give away where we're going because I haven't told any of my people yet where we're going for the 30th year. But yes, it will be another great celebration of the work the team has done.
And that's an important point to make as well, isn't it? That so many businesses, when they get caught in the tyranny and the vortex of what they do day to day, doing all the work in many cases, which is why they need the coach. They don't always find the time to celebrate and acknowledge where they've been.
Well, gratitude and celebration is a massive part of success. Without gratitude and without celebration, it's if we bring that down to a practicality sake, is you get more of what you're grateful for, you get more of what you're actually celebrating. If you don't celebrate it and you don't get excited about it, because you as the owner may not need celebration, but your team does. They need the acknowledgement that they've worked dang hard to get to this point. They need that level of, and you also need to stop and take a break every now and again. If you just pedal to the metal all the time and you don't, stop and take a break. And I think that's a very big part of the Australian in me. I always joke that you English sent all of the fun people to Australia 200 years ago. And, but that nature of the Australian to stop and take a breather, that nature to have lifestyle to be ahead of work is a very important thing for us and our company, and it's part of our culture. But I keep looking back to gratitude and that sort of thing. It's like, if you relate it to money, if you're no good at taking care of a small amount of money, you'll never get given a big amount of money. If you're not thankful for the small things you have in your life, why would you ever be blessed with large things in your life? How you treat money when you only have 50 grand a year determines whether you'll be blessed with more money to be able to handle that much type thing. And so it's really a big balancing act for a lot of people on how they show gratitude and how they celebrate what is already a part of their life and what's already there.
Mm-hmm. So when did you make the decision to actually franchise, because that's an interesting term and it certainly conjures up a wealth perspective, because WealthBuilders, we talk about different ways to create recurring income in a business. And I'm sure we'll talk much about that during the course of the BizX. And that's definitely something I'll be highlighting in my presentation, and definitely something that's embedded in the Wealth Coach book, which is, coaching one of the business owners through a process of creating recurring income in her business. But how did you create yours? I mean, just even creating the name, it's always fascinated me how people choose names of things and then choosing a franchise. What's the story behind that?
Well, when we first started out, I employed all of the business coaches in my business. And then we started to expand rapidly, and we were expanding through New Zealand, up through Singapore and Malaysia. And we sat down and said, look, how are we best to go into these markets where we are not experts in those markets? What's the best methodology? And the best methodology was to bring on the best people in those markets. And at the time, there were no real white-collar franchises. Today, a white-collar franchise is fairly normal. People see it all the time. But back in those days, there was really just, I guess, expense reduction analysts and maybe a couple of the tax firms, Jackson Hewitt and those sorts of things. But so we were one of the first white-collar franchises, because to franchise intellectual property was different than franchising a burger joint or a cleaning company where you had a site, where you had a brand name, and you had all of those sorts of things. But what we sat down and said is, well, we have a systemic methodology for doing this, and can we teach that to someone so they can run their own business? And also, I really liked at the time, Kevin, the idea of having local ownership to coach local businesses.
Yeah.
So, the business owner was on the ground or always accessible, even though they had a team of coaches, the owner was still there. There was still someone with that level of responsibility and accountability to the client, to the customer, to, in our case now, they're members. Our clients of Action Coach are members of our organization today. And membership has its privilege. Thanks, American Express, for reminding me of that one. But ultimately, we decided that to grow at the speed we wanted to grow, we needed to be a franchise organization to expand into the UK, the US, Canada, the rest of Asia. We needed to be a franchise organization. And today we're a big mix. We are a corporate organization in that we many of our own franchises are run by us. And many of our master franchises are run by us, but also we have a large mix of franchise partners, and they are partners. It's really the biggest key to success in franchising is viewing your franchise partners as partners in your business. They are your partners in that location, and you share the profitability of those businesses. And so the more you both make it profitable, the better it is for everybody.
Well, this profitable word comes up a lot when your name is used in talking about businesses, particularly around your methodology. And probably the most oft quoted phrase I've heard from action coaches that I deal with is, we're here to teach you how to create a commercial, profitable enterprise that works without you, right? You must have heard that said millions and millions of times. And I've got a couple of questions on that. I mean, why do you use the word enterprise there instead of a commercially profitable business? Why you use the word enterprise?
Because we're defining what a business is. We're defining a business. The definition of a business is an enterprise. It has to sell something. And that's where, too many people think of a business as, and if I can go back 2 steps and be very blunt, most people, Kevin, don't have a business. They've bought themselves a job. They've built a job whereby they work. They thought they worked for an idiot before. Now they know they do. And it's like they're stuck. They are stuck in that. And so what we try and teach people is how to build an asset, how to build a saleable enterprise, how to build something that you can actually, it's run under management. It's not run by the owner. See, if something's run by the owner, it's not a business. It's where you have to show up. And people are surprised because I teach them that, and today's a Thursday. Why? Because I work Tuesdays and Thursdays. They're the only 2 days I work. I run 11 companies in 2 days a week because I'm the owner of companies. I'm not the CEO. I'm not the person who works in the business. I work on the business. I own it. And so the commercial profitable enterprise goes back to our 6 steps too, Kevin. In our world, we take people through six stages of building their business. The first is mastery, and there's 4 areas of mastery. And these are all in my book, The Business Coach. That's the name of the title of that book. But the 4 areas of mastery allow us to get it to be a commercial operation. So it's actually now running properly. It's not the tail wagging the dog. The owner can run the business rather than the business run the owner type thing. The second stage we go into is the commercial profitable enterprise, where we get into their marketing, their niche. And how do they do that? And we have our 5 ways formula for methodology of increasing the profitability of the organization. Then when we go into the next phase, the commercial profitable enterprise, that works. That's where we go into the systemization of the organization, the leverage. How do we create a systemic approach? And there's 9 stages to doing that. And then finally, at the 4th level, we actually get to a commercial profitable organization that works without you. And that's where we build the team and the management and leadership and all of that side of the organization. Then finally, we go to one of my other latest books, which is this one, the Pulling Profits Out of a Hat, where we go into the synergy level, which is whereby we take a business that has a singular operation. So it might be, if you think of what Ray Kroc did for McDonald's, he found the McDonald's brothers. They had this one operation. It had great systems, great marketing, great team, all of those things. And he just said, how do I replicate this in every city in the country? And then eventually he said every city in the world. And so For me, that's what I personally do these days. I buy into companies that I see are a great operation. They might be in one city, one state, one country, and I say, I'm going to take this all across the world. And that's really what I look to do day in and day out, is globalize companies that I see are great companies. And sometimes we do that through licensing, sometimes franchising, sometimes through corporate ownership.
So the sixth step, of course, is wealth, and that's the focus of what we do. And one of our core messages is always that, and particularly the current events, recent events, and we talked about it's been 2 years since you've been to the UK, and obviously the pandemic has had a lot to say about that, is this idea of creating recurring income. Because the recurring income, in a sense, allows the business to work without the owner. At least it gives that possibility, given the fact the income is predictable and dependable and works. What's your view about recurring income and how you share that within ActionCOACH and your processes?
Well, if you go back to the strategy of any business, the first part of any strategy is leverage. Work once, paid forever. So get a customer once and keep them forever. I go into companies like, there was a UK company that one of my team was working with, and they came into an event with me, and we were chatting with them, and they're a cheese business. Now, they used to just be in the milk business of, they had cows and they sold the milk to the thing, and they realized there wasn't enough profit in that, and they were in the cheese business. I said, well, show me your cheese club. And they looked at me and said, what do you mean your cheese club? I said, well, what's the name of the club where I sign up and I get cheeses sent to me every week or every month? Exactly. I said, well, we don't have one of those. I said, well, that's the dumbest thing ever. Why wouldn't you have a cheese lovers club, And so all of a sudden they start the cheese lovers club. I'm just buying a share of a cattle business here in the US. And one of the things that we have, it's the steaks that we sell, American Wagyu. And it's like, well, where is the monthly box? And what levels of monthly box? Can I have $1,000 a month box and a $500 a month box and a $2,000 a month box? Where's my box that shows up every single month, whether I like it or not? And so when you look at any business, and let's use, say, what's a good example? Oh, my phone's sitting right here. Apple. When Apple first started, they had bad leverage. The organization, when they first started, let's go compare two companies. Silicon Valley, you got Steve Jobs at one end, Bill Gates at the other end. Bill Gates creates a piece of software that you make it once and sell it forever and ever and ever. You sell it billions of times type thing. And now, if you even look at Microsoft, they've evolved where they don't sell you the software, you license the software and you pay them every month or every year to get that. They've gone to a recurring income model. Very simple. At the other end of Silicon Valley, you had Steve Jobs. He was a computer manufacturer. Now, he had negative leverage. He sold you the computer, so you made it once, sold it once, right? Now, make it once, sell it once. Okay, you can make money on that, but he sold it with the software, so they had a debt to every customer to keep updating the software and upgrading the software. Finally, they started selling the software, but then they still had it. Steve Jobs goes away. What does he learn? He learns leverage. How did he learn leverage? What little company did he buy and then sell for billions? Pixar. Steve Jobs went and made movies. You make a movie one time and you sell it 1 billion times. It's still today, Toy Story makes Disney a bunch of money. Still today, Monsters Inc. still makes a bunch of money for Disney because, Disney, if you want to talk about the most genius company in the world at recurring income, Disney is the most genius company in the world at recurring income. So you think of how many ways they sell you the mouse. Think of how many different ways you buy that thing. The movie Frozen comes out. Every parent in the world is dying because, oh my goodness, now I've got to buy another 400 toys for my child with this new character. But Steve Jobs takes what he learns there, goes back to Apple, and what industry does he move them into? The music business. Do the work once, get paid forever is what I teach. Steve Jobs, a better genius than me. Steve Jobs never did the work. Who invented the iPod? Not Apple. Sony invented the MP3 player. Who invented iTunes? Napster. Napster invented iTunes. They just created it. So Steve Jobs goes out there and says, we're going to go to the music business. We're going to make no music. We're going to just have a platform where people buy their music, and hey, presto, we're going to make a fortune out of it. 30 cents on the dollar. And here's the kicker to that story, Kevin. Sony is one of the biggest owners of music in the world, and Sony invented the MP3 player. Hello, someone at Sony, because Sony reported they were too scared to move into digital music, too scared to leap into it. And that's a problem for a lot of businesses. They're too scared to leap into some form of leveraged income, some form of repeat recurring style income for their business. But Steve Jobs then moves them into the app business. They never make an app, but they make 40 cents on the dollar in every app and every in-app purchase. Steve Jobs moves them into the TV business. He invents the iPad because you can't play games on that tiny little screen anymore. You need an iPad to play games. And then they're like, well, now you can watch TV shows and movies. And then eventually they invent the really large iPad for old people with bad eyes. And they're still making money, recurring income off of every dang thing. See, leverage is important, not just in what you do, it's important in every aspect. Work once paid forever, or at least long term. And it also defines what an owner should do. An employee work is work once paid once. Manager's work is work once paid long term. Owner's work is work once paid forever. Yeah, so you'll make money based on whether you do an employee work. If you're doing employee work all day, every day, you make the same as your employees. You're doing manager's work, you make the same as your managers. Once you start doing owner's work, you start making owner's money.
And it's great to be talking about these big stories, so a bit like anybody would talk about royalty, which always sounds a very fascinating source of income, but only a few people can write a song or write a bestseller. What do you think of the lessons that a small business who's thinking about, well, look, I'm working once, getting paid once. How can I add a little to my recurring income? Just something I could do to get started. So instead of having nothing, everything's work once, paid once, they could do something next month and then something the next month. You mentioned that with the cheese company thing, but any other examples?
Well, first of all, you've got to think of, how do I get a customer once and keep them coming forever? Or at least long term? How do I get a customer that's on a recurring purchase every single month? What do I have to do to get those customers back month after month after month and sign up for that? Like the guy that trimmed the trees at my dad's house. And I stood there with him one day and I said, how often do you come out? He said, every time your dad calls. And I go, why don't you just say, I'm going to come every 6 months and do your trees and turn up every 6 months and send him the bill? He goes, that'd be a great idea. To me, that's just natural thinking, what I want to do. But it also sometimes, Kevin, you have to go back to the model of your business. Sometimes you have to look at the strategy behind your business. Some businesses are designed to be one-off sales, and you need to change your product or service model so that you are actually into a different style of model. Like if you're an air conditioning manufacturing company, there's not too many people who are going to put in a second air conditioner very soon type thing. But if you're the air conditioning servicing company, then you're there every few months and you're doing all of that sort of thing. So it's often looking at it from that particular basis. How do you do that? Now, you don't need that to be 100% of your business. You can just look at your A-grade customers, that top 20%, and say, how do we do it for our A-grade customers? How do we build in that long-term model for our A-grade customers? And I think that's an important part of it. But then the flip side of that, Kevin, is you've got to start pulling some of your cash out of your business and start putting it into other things that create a recurring level of income. Right. It's why I teach real estate investing. I spent the day yesterday teaching a bunch of my people real estate investing, because when you sit down and look at it, what do I want to do? I want to do the work once, get paid forever. So I buy the house once, and I don't even buy it. All I do is pay 20% of it. I've never bought one piece of real estate and paid 100% for it. All I've ever paid is 20 cents on the dollar, because I put in the deposit, the tenant pays the rest of the mortgage, I own it in 20 years' time. Why people don't do that blows my mind, Kevin. Obviously you need to learn real estate investing, but it just blows my mind when people get it. Like, you give 20%, over the next 20 years, someone else pays the other 80%, and you get to own 100% of it.
Yep.
Explain to me why you wouldn't do that again. It's just silly. In some places where people think, my retirement's going to be too tough. Look, if you want to retire on a couple of million, you want to have a couple of million in the bank, then what you've got to do is, but 20 years before you retire, go and buy at least $2 million worth of real estate. Now, people are like, well, what if it doesn't go up in value? I don't care. I don't care if it doesn't go up in value. If I bought $1 million property, right, go and buy a house worth $1 million, I put in 200 grand. 20 years from now, if it's still worth $1 million, like it's gone up, not at all. Someone's paid off the other 80% of it for me. So I put in 200. I now have $1 million. That's called 400% return on investment over 20 years. Show me where else you're going to get 400% return on investment over 20 years. Like, people are crazy. People are crazy, Kevin. You know that with the subject of money. Great country song.
Well, you'd be pleased to know that within Wealth Builders, we talk about 7 different ways to build wealth, of which one of those, and we call them pillars, and one of those very clearly is real estate, or property as we refer to it more in the...
Sorry, I got to go back to my Australian roots, the property business.
It's a combination of Australian and American and English, so we just got to get the language right. So, but and the other thing that we speak a lot about here is the huge fees that people are paying on their stock market investments and their retirement funds. Any views on that? You can get on the soapbox for a minute if you want.
Not too many views that I would like recorded for long-term posterity's sake. Look,
remember, you can give this gift forever.
The reality is that 3 to 8% of fees that you are paying is the compounding difference between you actually being very rich and you having just enough to get by when you retire. That the compound of that small, tiny set of fees that you think of as small and tiny is so massive at the end of that game that when you show people that compound effect of those fees. But what are you paying people fees for? Well, what you're paying them fees for is to make a decision to sell and change your stock on a very regular basis so they can collect more fees. So, for me, the stock market is a simple animal. If I would buy the whole business, then I'm willing to buy a share of the business. Would I buy Amazon? Yes, I would buy Amazon. If I had the money, I would buy Amazon. Great, then I'm willing to buy a share of Amazon. Would I buy Coca-Cola? Yep, I don't think Coca-Cola is going to get smaller. I don't think it's going to get littler. I think it's going to get bigger as time goes by. So, yeah, I would buy a share of Coca-Cola. So I'm very, very simple, but I'm also very niched. When I speak to investors, I say you've got to have 2 things to be classified as an investor in my mind. You've got to have a set of rules and a niche. Now, if you don't have a set of written rules as to what you will buy and won't buy, you're basically a gambler. This is what I will buy. I'll buy a piece of real estate or a property. I'll buy that property if it meets these criteria. It has to be 4 bedroom, 3 bathroom. It has to have this size. It has to have this value, this rental income. It has to be in this type of neighborhood. It has to be at a 97% occupancy rate in that market. If it meets all of these criteria, I will buy it. And people say to me, Kevin, all the time, but I don't have enough knowledge. I don't know what to write down. What rules should I have? Well, if you don't know enough to write your rules, you don't know enough to invest. Don't invest your life savings in something that you haven't got the knowledge to do. Invest in knowledge first, investments second. If you invest in investments first, you're learning by trial and error. Trial and error costs a lot more than actually reading a book.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more. I think you're speaking our language in that regard. So listen, as we...
Hence why we wrote a book together. That's the thing.
Anyway, well, there's a lot of English stuff in the book just to make it easy and to translate across the pond or across the big divide if it's from Australia. But listen, we're looking forward to seeing you in just a couple of weeks' time now. So what would you like to tell our audience about what BizX is all about?
BizX, we started BizX with a simple philosophy, and that is that we wanted to celebrate and educate. We want to celebrate business owners doing great, because business owners, they're not really celebrated as much as we would like to see them be. Business owners are the backbone of any economy. And if we can celebrate the business owners who create the jobs and create the taxes, then we're celebrating the right people. My foundation, my charitable foundation, is all about taking kids and teaching them to be employers, not employees. And so we want to celebrate those who are the backbone. The second is educate. Business isn't getting any easier. You've got to get better at business. If you become a great business owner, then you'll create a great business. If you wait in the background and sort of think, it'll all get okay. No, you've got to continue to grow as a business owner. So doing those 2 things, the magical thing that happened though, Kevin, is that we not only get to bring together all of the best speakers and the best educators around the subjects of business and success and wealth and all those things, but we also get to create this community. Business ownership is often one of the loneliest jobs in the world. because it's like, who do you talk to? You don't want to talk to your banker about your problem. In fact, you want to hide your problems from your banker. You want to get it to a point where who do you talk to? And that's why we bring the business owners together to create this community that does a great job. So I'm super stoked to be there. Can't wait to give out the awards and can't wait to help teach and educate them. And more importantly, the Australian in me can't wait to have a beer at the bar at the end of the day each day. So.
Well, I'm sure there'll be plenty of opportunity to clink a glass with one or two.
I hope so.
Just touch on something else that overlaps with our thinking, which is in the spring this year, we're launching a program here in the UK called WealthBuilders for Families, helping parents become great money role models for their children. Because, as I'm sure you know, they don't teach financial literacy in schools. You don't teach it in university. Don't teach it anywhere. So we want to educate the parents. I would like to get your thoughts on that. And I know you're a family man, 5 kids of your own. So, what do you do to influence and inspire your own kids? And then finish, if you could, on your charitable foundation, because I love the idea of kids becoming employers, not employees, because that's careers advice in that regard, never done.
Yeah. The reason I originally wrote The Wealth Coach was because I could see kids not learning money. And originally I wrote the book and thought, I'm going to give this. So I gave it to 2 of my buddies who have kids and I said, do you think your kids would grasp this stuff? Can you just read it and see it? And they both came back to me and said, Brad, we don't even know this stuff. Can you write the book so that the adults can learn it too? And so I think that's an important aspect of if parents are good financial role models for their kids, but parents still have to learn it. Most of their parents weren't great financial role models. And so for us as a family, we do a bunch of things. Our kids, I still remember Kenzie, who's now just turned 19, one of her teachers at school bragged to me at 5 years old. They're all talking about what you do with money. And the teacher says, and the kids are saying, you buy toys, you go to McDonald's, you buy things. And Kenzie waves her hand and says, no, miss, that's not what you do with money. You invest it, then you get more. And it was like my 5-year-old kid knows more about money than the vast majority of people out there on the planet. But that's because every Thursday they took 50% of their pocket money to the bank to invest it. They went to the bank and took 50% of their money and we gave it to them in cash so that there was a physical nature. See, when it comes to investing, the habit is more important than the amount. Actually, the habitual nature of doing the investing is more important than how much you invest. And if it's £5 a week, start with £5 a week, but go and do it. I love automatic investment plans where it just gets taken out, but I feel better when I watch people go and do that thing and build and ingrain in themselves. We do other things with the kids. Our kids have to get jobs at 15. They come from a very wealthy family, but I don't care. You still get a job at 15. At 18, whatever you've saved at 18, I'll double for you. We'll buy you your first car as long as you get the good grades. We'll buy you your second car as long as you finish college on time, on budget. But at college, you have to get a job in your second year. First year, you can assimilate and do the crazy partying that kids do at college. But second year, we want you to have a job. A kid that's unemployed. I go back even further. We started our kids in sport. They had to be in a team sport because a kid that's not coachable is unemployable. If they're used to having a good coach, then they will have a good boss type thing. And for them to be their own business owner, they have to have learned. Kenzie, again, she wants to open a bar and restaurant. And I said, great, where are you working? I said, I want to see you working in at least 6 bars and restaurants before you can open your own, because you've got to learn what to do, what not to do, what's bad, what's good, all those sorts of things. And so that led us to our foundation. Our foundation has 2 major programs. Firstly, the YES program, the Young Entrepreneur Smart Start. We take kids from 12 to 22. They're broken in half, so 12 to 16 and 17 to 22. They go through either an 8-week for the younger ones or 12 weeks for the older ones course in creating their dream board, creating their own business plan, and then pitching their business plan. And so they pitch that. And then at the end of the year, some of them get a grant from the charity, which is a loan. They have to pay it back to start their own business. And so that's that. The flip side of that is we also then work with charitable organizations and not-for-profits. We coach them for free. They can apply and become free coaching through ActionCOACH. And next year, we actually open that up to our clients. We're going to allow our clients to run the Young Entrepreneur Smart Start program, and we're going to allow our clients to use our coaching program to work with charities. So charities, we can do them a lot better by coaching them than we can by giving them a little bit of cash. A bit of cash doesn't go very far, but by coaching them, we turn them into organizations that understand recurring income. They understand recurring income. Well, where's your membership program? Well, we don't have a membership program. Well, let's start there. What's your $49 a month membership program? That's what a charity should have every single time. And if they don't, they're not going to, their bills, they'll be, robbing Peter to pay Paul, and they won't be doing the work they're doing because they're too busy trying to get money.
Yeah, well, very well said. And are we going to be seeing that coming into the UK as well?
We are. We're going to be at BizX, actually doing a launch. One night at BizX, I'll be selling myself off for dinner, and the highest bidder that takes me to dinner and donates to the charity will actually get to take me to dinner and ask me advice about their business. And that'll be the launch of the charity in the UK. And then we'll start the programs teaching kids across the UK how to be that. And we will go into schools. We do offer a simple thing. You can sponsor one child, you can sponsor a class, or you can sponsor an entire school to go through the education program. And it's been really interesting. Trinidad, we've just had an entire school in Trinidad go through the program. And it's amazing to see these young people pitching their business ideas. And you can just see this light in their eyes, because it happened for me at 16 when I won that Rotary Award, and they taught me how to be a leader in success. And so we want to go on and do that around the world.
That's a great circle to begin at 16 and to end with talking about what you're doing there. I think we applaud you for it. We'd love to be a part of that. I'm looking forward to meeting you in person and seeing you with BizX and sharing the stage with you and hopefully signing a few books with you. But Brad, what a pleasure and a joy it's been to get some of your wisdom. And what's interesting about you, I've noticed before, is I can feel slightly unwell. I could be coughing and sputtering, but you just keep going, right? No notes, no cues, just crack on. And,
after 30 years of teaching, or 29 years of teaching business and wealth and life, and I just recently recorded, I hit 50, and I said, you know what I'm going to do? And I built a TV studio in my office. So I go in and I recorded 30 minutes a day for 30 days on business. So everything I know about business, 30 minutes a day for 30 days on life and success principles, and then 30 minutes a day for 30 days on wealth, so that it's now there. If anything ever happens to me, it's there, it's done. I don't have to worry. The world can get my wisdom for the rest of time.
Good for you. Well, thanks for sharing it with us today. Chris, any final thoughts as we normally end our podcast?
Well, just going back to when you were a 16-year-old, is there any advice you'd give to your younger self now, Brad?
The only advice I would ever give my younger self is go faster. That self-doubt and that questioning of what you're doing, just go faster, go harder. Now, most people think, geez, the speed you went at, you want to go faster? Yes. There were times where I held myself back, and just through, that sort of thing. I guess the biggest part about that, Chris, is you've got to grow into your goals. If you set a goal to double your business, you've got to grow into that. You, as the person you are today, can't double your business, because if you could, you already would have. The person you are today can't become a millionaire if you're not one already. You've got to grow into being a millionaire. And that's why your first million's your hardest, because you don't know what you're doing. Your first business is your hardest because you don't know what you're doing. You're learning while you're doing it. So, grow faster so I could go faster. That's probably the easiest way to give that.
Okay, hope you enjoyed that conversation there with Brad. He's certainly got a few things to say about business.
He certainly has, but he does it all from the cuff. You can just hear his energy and his enthusiasm. And what really kind of makes me feel reassured, Chris, is although Brad's from a different country, from Australia, Brisbane originally, and lives in the States, but the principles of being in business and running a great business, a valuable business, whether you keep it or sell it, are evident. So the three key things that we talk about WealthBuilders. One is you need to be in a well-defined niche. Be clear on whose problem you're solving. Number two, make sure the business can run without you. And number three, find a source of recurring income. As he says, do the work once, get paid forever. and that's right, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, so those principles are still valid, and they're principles we share in WealthBuilders. So if you're a business owner and you would like to learn how you could pull out those three things and that 3-pin plug, as we often refer to it, that powers up your business, then get in touch, because, we're so keen to help business owners. And anybody who knows my story knows I come from a business owner dad who unfortunately didn't make it. Like all those business owners you meet who mean to do things but don't get round to things. And then I'm just too busy. And if you're one of those, take a little bit of time to think about these things.
Yeah. So a final reminder for the BizX event is taking place next week, the 31st of March. Head on to actioncoach.co.uk if you'd like to grab a ticket and join ourselves and thousands of business owners there as well. And another event that we've got coming up is next week on Tuesday, the 29th of March, starting at 7:30 p.m. And that is a SSAS webinar. So it's all about how you can take control of your pensions and start building wealth.
Yeah, I mean, look, pensions are, for most people, a dreary subject. But we get excited about pensions, don't we? Because we know old pensions are clunky, people are disconnected, they're often paying high fees and over-committed to the stock market, and we've seen the volatility of the stock market. A SSAS pension, small self-administered scheme, awkward language, I know, but is a really powerful thing because it allows the business owner, need to be a business owner, so back to that theme of being a business owner. And by the way, Chris, anybody who's building wealth needs to be a business owner. So getting into business and seeing yourself as an entrepreneur is critical to this. But if you are a business owner or you aspire to be one, definitely tune into that, because it will tell you how to take complete control of whatever pensions you've got, whether old pensions or taking profit that you're not spending. Most businesses make profit that they don't spend. They don't take it all out. How you can combine profit and pensions and turn it into a personal bank account that's completely ring-fenced from any form of business problem, any form of litigation, any form of tax, and allows you to really control that money to help you build your wealth. And guess what? Completely tax-free. No income tax, no corporation tax, no inheritance tax, no capital gains tax. Tax-free, Chris. If you can build your wealth tax-free, and our objective is to get, those people who we work with, to get £1 million tax-free per person. So if you've got, like me, husband, wife, and 3 grown-up kids, you can build 5 million completely tax-free. Yeah. That's why you should tune into that webinar.
Yeah. Hopefully you haven't got a secret husband there. But I get the point there.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So how you can register for this webinar, go to wealthbuilders.co.uk/SSAS webinar. So that's SSAS webinar, all one word. And registration is free, and that will be hosted by yourself, Kevin, and our SSAS director, Paul Brooks. Yeah. So lots and lots of experience and knowledge. You'll be able to answer any questions live on that webinar that people might have.
Yeah, everything you want to know about SSAS, but we're afraid to ask, Chris. Or you didn't know who to ask.
Yeah, good stuff. So go and register for that. And I guess time for us to sign off, Kevin.
Yeah, so, there's some celebrations to have in the coming weeks, and looking forward to seeing a whole bunch of people at the BizX event. And until then, I look forward to seeing you again soon, Chris. See ya.
We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Don't forget that we are constantly updating our resources inside the WealthBuilders membership site to help you create, build, and protect your wealth. Head over to wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership right now for free access. That's wealthbuilders.co.uk/membership.